Obviously excited about the win. First, what will be a future opponent. I thought there was many things looking at the film that we did well. I think it was a gritty win, just watching our guys compete offensively, defensively. But there are so many things that we still need to correct, whether that be organizationally or just overall knowledge inside of situations in the game that we need to be better be better at. And then overall, just there's certain areas on the team that, whether it be special teams or certain situations in the game, offensively or defensively, we have to improve. We just have to. Technically and mentally, we got to get better. So excited for North Texas. This will be a challenge for us. Really good football team. Obviously, not familiar with the head coach, but familiar with the brand of football. Very similar to what we just faced. Probably more multiple on offense. Have some really good players. I think the quarterback does a really good job for them. He's can see coverage and gets the ball out of his hands quick, and then he can make things happen with his legs. And then defensively, they are fast on defense, so we got to make sure that we can be able to execute and change up some looks to make things harder on them. At the end of the day, this will be a physical game on the road and what will be in a tough environment, and our guys got to respond from having some success last week and not get complacent and take a step this upcoming week. So I'm excited to watch them practice and how they prepare this week, because I think you could see a test of a team when you realize that there's plenty of work to be done, but the result went in your favor. Will they act different? And that's on us as coaches and the captains and the pulse of this team to make sure that we don't bask in our glory, because anybody can beat you. So we got to get ready for this weekend.
Fun fact for you, you've coached 32 games as a head coach. Jackson Pollard has 42 passes at the most by a quarterback in a game you've coached as a head coach. Are you okay with that number, or kind of how do you find the right?
I'm okay with winning. Yeah. And so if that's what we are right now and we're better at that, we'll balance it out as we go. I do believe in running the football because I believe in situational football. And, at the end of that game, we relied a little bit on misfortune of the other team rather than being fortunate ourselves by executing at a high level and being able to run the ball, burn out the clock. Jackson Potter threw a dime, on the 4th and 1 to T-free. So that led the drive to allow us to continue to move the chains, and then we stalled. We had to kick a field goal. The field goal was blocked, and that field goal the guy was offsides, but that's really hard to tell on film. So if we don't look at that and say, how do we get better, maybe that happens to us because we apply the technique and I'm more caught up in the result, and I'm not. The result was the result because we executed and prepared properly, but there are things in that game that if the wide receiver catches that ball that Colby Humphrey was, hit the ground, what's the result of that drive? I don't know. But I know it was a critical play, and that kid didn't make the play. It's not that we made it. He didn't make the play. And I don't want to leave the result in somebody else's hands. And I think our players need to see those things, and they'll see it again later on this week just as far as the illustration of how we did it. But the issues inside of that game stemmed a little bit from the other team's lack of execution rather than our own execution and, creating our own circumstance.
Would you make it your offensive line play? What kind of role did they play in Saturday's game?
I thought the D-line was good going into it, and I think number 2 might be one of the better defensive linemen I've seen. I think he's really twitchy, and I think for him to be limited in his role, although he had he didn't have a ton of hurries and he didn't have any quarterback sacks, I think we did a good job with scheming around that to protect. He also had a million batted balls, I felt like, in a short amount of time, right? He made instant plays all the time, and so some of those things, maybe it's less about the scheme and the direction of where we're at on the field, and maybe at times running away from people's best players, because if a player is going to impact the game, I don't know if the scheme matters, and I think we did a good job of managing him. Overall, offensive line-wise, we need to continue to improve and get those hard yards when it's 3rd and 2. We should be able to get a quarterback sneak on a 3rd and 1, regardless if the world knows that those are really hard to stop defensively. And so we got to continue to learn from those moments. How did I do it? How did I fail? And how do I get better so it don't happen again? It doesn't happen again. If you don't look at things like that, you'll end up, being on the other end of the loss in the loss column. So, I know one thing that you can't bask too long when you play great teams. Otherwise, you're going to get complacent on what you did. And if I'm going to preach 1-0, we're going to live that as a staff, and we got to get ready to play our best football.
What role did you see Brock Dew play in the improvement of the O-line from week 1 to week 2?
Brock did a much better job just overall communication. And it's not that it wasn't good in the first game. He was player of the game as far as the bigs were concerned in the first game because he executed. But it's not when you play center or when you're a captain in general, it's not always just about you and succeeding. It's about trying to get everybody else's game to spike with you and make sure that they're on the same page, and that's done with communication inside of a play.
And with the you mentioned complacency and making sure that the team doesn't fall victim to that. What are some of your methods for kind of policing that or encouraging a standard of not being complacent even when you've had the success like you mentioned?
I think being honest with people and showing them the issues, and it's not to be negative, but it is. Like, I'm the biggest fan. I tell them that all the time. I'm the biggest fan. I want them to have success, but if somebody doesn't tell you the truth, how do you know how to improve? I think it stems from that, and they need to see that in the game, and they need to see what they did well, too. It's not just what they didn't do, because there were some gritty plays in there, and there was some perimeter blocking, whether it be Josh Meredith or Carter Paps or Noga or Leighton Smithson or Mack, that those couple yards allowed us to continue to move the chains. And so for me, like, what play is not the most important play? They're all important because you don't know which one changes the game. Kirby's 4th down run on 4th and 1, what followed that? Carter Paps shot across the field. What followed that? Trey Lechner's touchdown. Okay, so like if we don't get that 4th and 1, that really doesn't exist without Kirby putting his face in there. That's not highlighted because it's only a 1-yard gain. What are we talking about? We're flipping the field and the offenses or the defense is going back out there, and we could be in a different situation. So they all matter, and our players need to understand that, and they need to take that ownership, and when they get their opportunity, they need to make the most of it.
What have you seen from the team's growth through the first 2 games, and how will that improve going forward?
Yeah, I think there's been a growth. The first game, like, we responded the right way. We just didn't execute the right way. There's a little bit more execution in this, and then for some inside of this game, areas that we need to improve is more on me than anybody else. Because I didn't tell them. And now that we've told them, some of the things of how I've called penalties the last 2 games kind of drive me nuts a little bit. But the reality is that's on me more than anything else. We took a penalty coming out of really a dead timeout, right? And we just take a delay of game. Well, we took the field and there's 22 seconds left. We're standing over the ball and the opposing defense didn't come out until 15 seconds left. And they kind of just sat there and waited for them. I thought they would pump the clock based off of the situation of waiting on a team to address the football. So there's certain things like that I regret not taking action in. I don't know if I would have burned a timeout still, but I was confused. But substitution errors cannot happen. Not knowing that you're supposed to be in it on a unit cannot happen. Some of the punt issues cannot happen. We got to be able to flip the field if we want to be good. And because at the end of the day, if we expect our defense to hold people and then get a 3 and out, they're punting to us and they flip it and we cut the margin in half and how far we have to go to score a touchdown. That's what I'm talking about. We have to be able to move the ball regardless if we're scoring or not, to flip fields, to make them move it on us rather than giving it to them at the 50 every single drive. And so hopefully that point was clear this morning. It's not that we have to be perfect in scoring every play because it's unrealistic, but we have to hold ourselves to a certain standard that we're going to be on the field and move it how we need to move it to get to the field position which we need to. If we have to punt, we have to punt. But we should be able to kick field goals and score. Every play is ending in a good kick, PAT, field goal, or a punt. And we need to execute that way to do it.
Yeah, and then how do you continue the momentum of winning and being 2-0 while going on the road for the first time?
Yeah, you practice the right way, and you prepare the right way, and you don't get caught up in what people think about you. We were the world's worst a week ago, and then there hasn't been much written since. Not negative, at least. There's been articles, and I appreciate you guys for putting it out there, but not negative. And I'm cool with that. It's our job to go out there and put a product on the field that we're proud of and not care about what other people say about us, because at the end of the day, if you're not your biggest critic, you have bigger issues. And for me, I am our biggest critic, and so is our coaching staff. For our players, and our players need to internally take that on and say, I'm my own biggest critic, to go out and have a product that they're proud of.
You talked about the blocking on the perimeter. There were a couple plays just kind of in watching some of the replay where it's a swing pass to Tony, and you mentioned Carter Paps. He's out there, and he's moving guys, and there were at least a few plays where an extra 10, 15 yards are created because of that physicality. When you look at a freshman doing that, how much do you kind of point to that and say, hey, every guy in the room needs to be doing that if the kid who is coming off of being the guy in high school is able to do this and go out and put his nose into the dirt and bury guys?
I think it's a mentality thing. I think for one, it's understanding leverage and having savviness. I don't just accredit it to one thing. I think Carter Paps has played everything in his small town of what he's been asked to do in his community, because he's the best player in that whole community. And when you're asked to do that and you recruit a small town prospect that maybe doesn't have a million stars, you get a kid that understands leverage in small things that maybe the kid with the highest ranking coming out of high school has. Those are the kids that we've always been able to find. But to see a kid like that come in and have the confidence that he has, that stems from just like believing in himself. It's nothing that we've done. Carter Paps is a confident kid, and he has zero arrogance, works extremely hard, stays focused on the small things, doesn't get caught up in what people think of him, and the results are showing. And he's starting to step on people's toes as far as roster spot and playing time, because if I'm playing wide receiver and I'm only good when I catch the football, what good am I to the team even being on the field when I'm not catching the football? They got to run full speed and they got to block full speed, and that will put you on the field because you're giving something to the team that the other person is not giving only when they catch the football. I can't guarantee where Jackson throws the ball. His job is to throw it to the open guy. It's everybody else's job to execute their role at the highest level. He's doing that.
Depth of the defense. I mean, we see Michael Hughes making plays. We see Jack Ellison making plays. We see, you guys rotating a little bit more, kind of what you said you wanted to do after Idaho. How much do you think that kind of speaks to how many bodies you have that you can trust at any time to where you're comfortable playing 25 guys on defense and knowing that there isn't that big drop-off from the ones to the twos to the threes and fours even?
I think it comes down to a product of how you train anybody. You treat them the same. You're really honest with them. You allow them to grow. You tell them the truth. You push them constantly to be a player for you. Some guys are ready skill set-wise. Some guys aren't ready physicality-wise. Everybody's different, but you got to give them the opportunity to grow inside of a game. And we've been able to do that over my time as far as how we've been able to develop players. And you got to put people into the game, otherwise you're not going to have much of a roster to make us, run at it what we expect to have a great season, because the guys are just beat up because you're not rotating anybody. So defensively, those guys practice hard, and because they practice hard, they reap, what they sow as far as what they're putting together on a field. And when you practice hard, there's camaraderie in that. You could see it in the spirit of how they celebrate each other. That's the product of winning football. We have to be content with, be patiently impatient and chomp at the bit that I'm ready when I get my opportunity. And everybody's got to buy into that, everybody. And it doesn't matter. I think our special teams can get better. And there's going to be some guys that get moved on the depth chart because of their lack of production. It's not a playoff. There's only so many plays in a game. If you want a bigger role, earn it. And that's been my pitch to the team, and that roster and the depth will continue to change based off of production. I think that's fair. That's why everybody gets into competitive sports. You don't get a role and then not be able to produce. Everybody's got to earn it. So that's been the theme since I've been here. I'll be honest with you. You got to put out an honest day's work for an honest day's, pay. So we're coming together, though. We need to practice the way we practiced last week, and we need to prepare that way, and we need to play with some edge, and we need to get our bodies back underneath of us. This is another 3-game stretch here, and then we get the bye. So we're just kind of getting going, and I hope nobody's content with what we've done, because we really haven't done anything yet. It's 2 games among 12, so we got to get ready.
When you're talking about the being honest with guys and telling them what they need to hear, but then on the other side being their biggest cheerleader, where does that coaching philosophy come from? And for guys that maybe aren't experienced with you, whether they weren't with you at South Dakota State or new recruits, is there any kind of adjustment period for them if maybe they haven't had that style of coaching in the past?
I'm sure there's an adjustment for everybody. Every time you get led by somebody different, regardless if I was this way or not, everybody's different and they take information differently. It's my job to try to get to know who they are and find out what makes them tick. And I promise you, when I'm honest with people, I could be honest with you, and I could be really honest with you to where it could crush you. I try to find out who they are and how they're motivated and watch how they get spoken to and see how they internalize the coaching. And then I make my assessment. And if that doesn't work, I may try a different approach. And maybe I don't say it out loud in front of the entire group. Maybe I just try to address them one-on-one because I think they may shrink and then go the opposite direction of what I'm trying to get done. At the end of the day, they have to be their own biggest critic. I can't want this for them. The coaches can't want this for them. They have to want it themselves with everything inside of them. They give up their life for this. If it's done right, they should. Because what else are we trying to do then if we're not trying to be all in on one thing? You're just kind of living in two worlds averagely, and I'm not about that. So there's a lot of sacrifice on both ends, right? And the reality is I will tell them when I make mistakes. I think they need to hear that I know that I'm not perfect and I'm my biggest critic, and I tell them where my error was at. That we shouldn't have had that kickoff last game versus Idaho. We shouldn't have ended the game like that. That was on me. That it shouldn't even have happened. It's a bad management. I have to address those things. I'm not perfect, but I can tell you my intent in trying to do right is pretty consistent and, perfect. Will I be perfect? I won't. But I can tell you I'm going to give it my best. That's all I've ever asked from the kids. And the kids aren't going to be perfect either. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to give up a sack. We're going to drop a pick. We're going to throw a pick. Issues are going to happen. How do I respond? Am I willing to take the coaching? Do I know how to grow from here? That's it.
What do good teams do to win on the road?
They prepare like they need to go win on the road as if they're no different than if they have to win at home. It doesn't matter where you're going. We're going to play an up-tempo offense that's really explosive. And they got great defensive speed, and they're going to be good on special teams. And the routine slightly changes, but not much. Fridays are built so that the home games and the away games are very similar. Unfamiliar place, and we got to go execute, and we can't care about what time we're playing. We're already going to be playing at a different time every single week moving forward. It is what it is. What excuse are we looking for not to play our best? Because you can find one. That can't happen. We have enough mature leadership on this team that has gone through a lot in their time here or with me. And, at the prior stop, that they know that any team can beat you if you don't show up and prepare the right way and you take people in the moment for granted.
Coach, when you think about what you want to be thought of as a team identity, you're building that now in week 3. Where would you summarize that of what you want people to see from this team and what that standard is? Yeah,
I would say toughness. I've told this story numerous times, but when I was an assistant, I was actually a graduate assistant at South Dakota State. I had the opportunity to sit in, and a lot of people get hired as a coach. And one of the assistants that was getting hired at that time was asked a question by our defensive coordinator, Jay Bubach. How do you want your defense to be known by, or what do you want your defense to be known by or known for? Or give us one word. And the guy kind of just sat there and waited for, he was trying to fill out the answer that was was asked of him so he could give the right answer for the interview. And he's like, it's a good question. What do you think? And he said, tough. And we've changed the word tough as in TUFF, which means team. Nothing is greater than the team. Understanding of the expectations and understanding of the standard in which you're supposed to uphold. And then the 2 Fs mean focus and finish. That's what it takes. It takes a certain level of focus to be able to accomplish something, and then you can't give in to, external things or feelings that you may have. You have to learn how to finish in life. And if I can get these kids to do one thing, I hope that they leave here and realize that they got so much more in the tank that they realize, and they can become a better person. They can work themselves and have a career to be proud of. And football's lasts a certain point of their life. It's such a small percentage, but if they can learn how to work hard, I think anybody that works hard can have success in any capacity. It's just how much you're willing to give and sacrifice in order for it to happen. That's what I think. And so we need to be tough, and we need to outlast people, because I can't guarantee that we'll always be the most athletic. I've always felt like that. There's always a kid that runs faster. There's always a bigger player. You have to out-hustle people. You got to play with more passion than people, and you got to be more physical than people. And if you could do that, you have a chance to have success, but it's got to be gritty, and you got to do it the hard way. And if you watch this play, I felt like that was a little bit of a brand of what I want to look like Wasn't easy, wasn't pretty. That was a good defense, and we out-executed, used 53 yards of width on the field, and we're able to have success. And defensively, we need to cover 53 yards of the field. So, wasn't perfect. It wasn't. We're chasing that though, and we're probably not going to end up stopping or feeling any form of gratitude about this season until the season is over with. That's how you take steps. So that's kind of who I am. You're probably going to hear the same message next week.
And then, oh, sorry. Just one more for me. When you opened up today, you kind of mentioned not only just practicing better and like you did last week, but also kind of making those mental lapses smaller. Can you kind of elaborate where you're seeing maybe some places where those guys need to get better in the mental standpoint?
Well, some of it is on me. It's what we call, for third down personnel, and it's 3rd and 9, and then they get 6 yards, and now it's 4th and 3, and you're in the situation of it being punt return or switching the personnel because they're going for it on offense. The people that are on the special teams unit, they can't just leave the huddle on defense to go over to the special teams unit thinking that the drive is over for them and check in with that. That's on me. It's not on any player, but that's what happened, and I'm calling a timeout because we don't have the right personnel package on the field because they're over in a different segment. We need to grow. 3rd down and 4th down is money down defensively. They can go for it at any point. We need to be on par with that. We need to make sure that the last week versus the University of Idaho, we messed up on 3rd down to start that drive. We took a delay of game because we had 10 people on the field because one of those guys that was on the team or on the field at that time ran off on it. It was the same person that had a mental error. He went the wrong direction. He was in his own head. He initiated that he was on punt, and then he forgot to come onto the punt field. Like some things that I think that I can't take for granted, I need to change. And those things are on me more than anything else. But I can't use timeouts off of dumb mistakes like that because that will kill you later on. And had we needed it, we wouldn't have had it. So punt needs to get better. We got to be able to flip the field defensively. Overall, the swarm has been good. Setting edges, I feel like we did a good job. We got to continue to communicate, and certain plays there. We fell down on the 4th down throw there, where that led to a touchdown. I know that Duran didn't mean to fall down, and it's just a technique thing. So like those things and having those experiences, and then coming out with a win, they're still there to learn from. It's just it worked out in our favor, and you don't have to sulk in this longer than you would for if we won. But if we're going to say our standard is one thing, I can't change the standard because the result went in our favor. It is just what it is, and they need to know that. And honestly, if you want to be good, hopefully they want it, right? Like that's the overall goal. Hopefully they want to be told the truth and they want to grow because everything that they want is on the opposite side of hard things. Like anything that's worth attaining isn't, it's got to be hard. That's why it's enjoyable. If it's not, then you probably wouldn't want it as much. So it's a lot of work that goes into this, and we need to just keep chomping at the bit to get better.
We saw Kale in uniform, but didn't see him on the field. Just kind of what was
He's going.
He's going?
Yep.
And then just other guys who may be questionable for this week. Devin update, just kind of what else kind of know on the injuries front?
I couldn't tell you anything on Devin, really.
Attacking an offense that throws it around so much, really is able to put up a lot of points, but so far to this season hasn't turned over the ball a lot. As a defense and as a defensive-minded coach, just how do you prepare for players a defense that'll have their opportunities against an offense that's going to maybe put it in the air a lot, but maybe not is loose with the football?
Yeah, I think you prepare for them all the same. You got to understand where they're trying to attack you, and you got to look at your personnel and say, are these the right guys on the field versus this matchup? It's not that our players are inadequate of doing a job. It's just somebody may be better than you. And we got to put our guys in a position to have success. As far as our belief in how we create our own turnovers or capitalize on another team's mistakes, I think that's always hammered home as far as what we expect defensively, as far as turnovers or takeaways and what we expect to hold people to 3rd down. We don't look at it and just set new goals every week. That would be crazy to me. Like, hey, these are the goals in which we have, and this is the percentage, and it changes based off who you're playing. I think you got to get your team to play to a certain level of standard, and the standard doesn't change. And so we need to make sure that we continue to have success on 3rd and 4th down like we did. We got to get some turnovers. I thought, we were able to have a 3 and out there, or a 4th down stop. We were able to get a safety. Like those are turnovers to me. Anytime you can hold an offense to 3 points, that's a huge win for me, or us. And especially if you do it after a turnover on their side of the field, right? So there's a lot of things that aren't going to change based off of who we're playing, and I would say the standard of how we play defense isn't going to change at all.
On Saturday, you mentioned you were surprised that was Bobby's first 1.5 sacks of his career. What was your first impression of Bobby's work ethic, and how have you kind of seen him continue to prepare and reach moments like that he did on Saturday?
Yeah, I think if you don't know Bobby, if you don't know him and you don't get to know him, he kind of seems like a little bit of a robot because he's hard to read at times. When you get to know him, he's an awesome person, and he's got a great sense of humor, and he's quite a character, actually. But he works extremely hard. I noticed that from day one. He, pound for pound, one of the most explosive guys on our team that works really hard. That, for a 5 or 6 a.m. morning workout, he's here an hour and a half prior, rolling out his body and eating the right amount of calories in order to have success in the weight room. And then he has a routine after that. And I think when you can get more guys like that are bought into the actual process of how it is supposed to be done, you have a better chance of having success than just relying on God-given talent. And the ones that have the talent, if they would just be half of what Bobby's work ethic is, like true, talent, who knows where those people can go. And that's my job, is to try to encourage, the Pulse's job to encourage them to follow these guys, because there isn't one guy in that Pulse group that doesn't work hard. And so, and there's probably not one guy in that Pulse group that isn't starting. I think it goes hand in hand.
And you mentioned some of the strengths of North Texas. What are, kind of spell it out, what are some of their other strengths that you're looking forward to facing and will you expect to be an utmost challenge?
Well, I think any time you play an up-tempo offense, it creates challenges. They have to execute, otherwise it goes into our favor. The RPO, to the side of the back, away from the back, the athletic quarterback that can extend plays on just when plays break down. Those things are always a challenge. You have to stop the run, but you have to stop an elite quarterback from throwing the ball in a tight window on an RPO. It's the offensive, the game is getting harder to stop people because the game keeps evolving and the schemes keep becoming more and more challenging. And when you play against great offensive coaches like North Texas has, obviously Washington State is accustomed to him and his success and saw what he was able to do here. Not just here, but he's a part of that system of Incarnate Word too, and we've had the opportunity to play them twice last year. Not saying that it's all the same. They probably have quite a bit more flexibility, but it's very similar. So it kind of helps us defensively, but to say that we can do the same thing to North Texas as we did to Incarnate Word, we won't and we can't. So we're going to have to come up with a great game plan, which we're working on right now, and we're going to have to play fast and try to out-physical people. And it's the same type of rhythm of success that I would tell you if we were playing another team too. We gotta out scheme people, and we gotta out physical people, and we gotta play harder than people.
Just some of the lulls on offense after Saturday's game. Have you noticed common denominator with some of those?
Yeah, when you take a tackle for loss or you have a penalty, it's hard to move the change, and those happen. We would move down the field and we would stall on a holding penalty. It's hard to get into rhythm again after that because the situation's quite a bit different. So we can't kill ourselves. We can't live behind the sticks on a delay of game. Yeah, those are kind of the lulls is when we set ourselves back. We did a good job of not giving up any sacks against a really good D-line and a really good defense that had great skill on the perimeter, and I thought really, really talented linebackers. And I do think Coach Lewis does a really good job overall. So, and I think, he's fresh there. He's had a year under his belt, but I still think it's not as easy as what people think it is, just to flip a whole team and start your process and get people to believe in. And it's just not as easy as what it used to be because of the transfer portal.
And last thing for me, you mentioned after the game that the penalties you guys are having are less mental and more about kind of the technique.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want no penalties, but is that a step in the right direction in some ways, or how do you see that?
I mean, you could say technique is mental, right? I mean, there's just no, it's not emotional. It's not like personal fouls. You know, I'm going to go on this because I hope somebody listens to this. Leon was excited about that touchdown. I didn't see the spin of the ball, right? But it didn't get called last week. Does that make it okay? Meredith got called the week prior, right? So I know they're excited about making these plays, but it's not exciting. It's kicking the ball from the 20, and it's not exciting for a defensive player to now have to have the ball at the 40, or they're halfway there on you, right? So we got to learn from those things. I would say that's a mental error. You know, Leon was excited. I'm excited for Leon. I'm proud of Leon. But we got to make sure that positive moment doesn't, that it lasts and it doesn't immediately turn into a negative moment because of just the spur of the moment reaction. Hopefully I answer your question. All right.